Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather on the second day of December 2018. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service. I'll be hosting today's show. Up first on the hazardous weather graphic, yellow area signifying winter weather advisories with the exception of the Alaska Range here. That's a wind advisory that will remain out until 9 p.m. this evening. Sunday evening here for winds to continue to gust above 60 miles per hour through the passes west of the Toke Cutoff. And south of there, Matanuska-Susitna Valley into Anchorage, that's a winter weather advisory for snow that's expected to move in with a cold front tonight, and anywhere from 3 to 6 inches in the forecast currently for Anchorage, Matanuska-Susitna Valley. 4 to 8 inches expected with the heaviest snow amounts coming through. It looks like about between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. with the advisory out until 4 a.m. And then there's winter weather advisories also back out here for this evening for the lower Yukon Valley to the Yukon Delta on up into eastern Norton Sound there for snow and windy conditions, and also anywhere from 5 to 7 inches of snow by tomorrow afternoon in the forecast here for the greater Galena and Ambler areas there in the Kobuk Valley. And then those should end tomorrow afternoon and evening. Otherwise, satellite imagery showing pretty good low pressure area tracking northeastward here into the southwest interior, and cold air following in behind here. You can see the broken appearance of the clouds, unstable, and definitely colder temperatures, snowfall levels down to sea level, and those just skirting the Pribilofs today under some pretty gusty west winds of anywhere from 25 gusts 35 miles an hour. And then the front pushing eastward here, this system brought some pretty windy conditions to areas of the southwest coast and inland, with Bethel seeing a peak gust of 62 miles per hour today. Marshall had a peak wind of 51 miles per hour. Precipitation really not all that heavy today, but over in the upslope areas like along the Kuskokwim Mountains, anywhere from up to a quarter or third inch water equivalent of precipitation falling, with basically, other than that, across the state and the interior, just amounts ranging from 1 to a few hundredths, and that's about it. Otherwise, cold front slowly pushing eastward, spreading the higher clouds after a little bit of clearing earlier today or this morning here over south central Alaska. Mostly mid and high level clouds coming back in ahead of the front. Moisture already spreading into southern and central Cook Inlet, southern Kenai Peninsula. Portage reporting some rain, and clouds, just some sprinkles over toward Cordova today. Not a bad day with some clearing over the southeast coast. Out to the west, much more intense system beginning to increase the winds now, currently at about, 3 p.m. Sunday afternoon, gusting about 40 miles an hour, Adak and Atka, and those will continue to increase with storm warnings for the Aleutians tonight into tomorrow. That'll gradually push eastward here to the eastern Aleutians tomorrow afternoon to the Pribilofs as well. May get into that storm force wind condition there. Otherwise, on the chart, late this afternoon, roughly the low position here, almost near Savunga, with the front right through this area into the Kuskokwim Valley. Not really dropping a lot of precipitation in the McGrath-Nikolai area. As I mentioned, just spotty areas, mostly in the upslope areas of the mountainous terrain here. A little bit heavier precipitation reported at least a 12-hour amount at Indian Mountain, up to about quarter inch, again, water equivalent. And areas of light rain here along the North Gulf Coast, a mixture right through here. And then the big storm, you can see the tight pressure field ahead of the occluded front here, main low center south of the Aleutians, but winds increasing this afternoon with some rain and snow spreading northward there, actually into the southern Bering Sea. Southeast coast looks like areas of possible sunshine this afternoon. High pressure up over the Yukon, so that giving dry north and northeast flow there, and even some ridging into the eastern Gulf of Alaska. For tonight, that low tracks northeastward to about the Noatak Valley area, with the front pushing eastward as well. So again, that'll bring a brief period of, could be pretty intense snowfall. So anywhere from, again, 3 to 8 inches falling south of the Alaska Range here. And again, keeping rain or a mixture of rain or snow along the North Gulf Coast area, especially ahead of the front there. And once the front pushes by, windy areas will diminish and conditions will improve rapidly. High pressure building in here will begin to clear skies out off to the southwest. And snow periods of will continue tonight up over the northwest with those winter weather advisories. Storm force winds, southern Bering Sea, all of the Aleutians tonight. Possible gusts high as 70 miles an hour here, pushing in toward Nikolsky late tonight. Moderate amounts of rain with that. Be some moderate amounts of rain along the North Gulf Coast with this front as well, but nothing heavy expected. And then for tomorrow, that front kind of elongates eastward. The low does come northward, but still south of the Aleutians. With a little center staying to the south there, that will keep the winds lighter than they would be otherwise if the low were to track north. That'd give a little more forcing and bring some windier conditions. But definitely storm force winds for these areas tomorrow with a front. Moderate amounts of rain, warmer conditions spreading up, and snow showers, maybe some clearing St. Lawrence Island. And tomorrow, clearing out rapidly. Whatever's left here over south central Alaska by morning will end rapidly. Look for clearing skies. Should be a mostly clear afternoon across south central Alaska. A good VFR here, right down to probably about Kodiak Island there. Then you'll start to see an increase in clouds late in the afternoon as those winds swing around to the east and southeast. Front into Canada, that's going to bring some rain and snow into the northern panhandle, Yakutat. Snow will linger over the eastern Alaska range and the 40-mile country there, but gradually ending, and then an area of snow will persist back here in the northwest with a trough up in that area. Otherwise, just scattered light snow showers in between. And again, ending dry conditions here across just about all of southern Alaska, taking a little longer here, as I mentioned, toward the eastern Copper River Basin. And then for Tuesday, that front with the storm, low center not moving too much there, right along or just east of Atka. By 3 p.m. Tuesday afternoon, strong northerly winds on the backside of that, possibly storm force coming down, definitely gale force and possibly storm force here over the western Aleutians. Colder temperatures as well coming down, warm south to north flow, another push of warm air, and you can see the gradient tightening up once again. Probably another hillside breeze event for south central Alaska, or actually the mountainous terrain of southern Alaska, with rain again along the coast, mixture inland, kind of the same pattern that we've seen, with just light amounts of snow north of the Alaska range. Generally dry though across the northern interior. Snow and blowing snow, gusts 50 miles an hour, St. Lawrence Island to the Bering Strait, and chance of snow southern coast of the Seward Peninsula. Chance of rain here along the coast, the north coast of the Panhandle, with just some sprinkles getting down towards Sitka, possibly Port Alexander. Otherwise, eastern southern part of the southeast coast will be pretty nice throughout the entire day with possible sunshine, and then some light snow and fog, possibly grazing or just skiffs of here along the western Arctic coast, but nothing too significant. And for the low temperatures tonight, just a shade below zero up there at Arctic Village. Otherwise, everybody above zero. 0 to 10 here over the eastern interior, and right around 10 or into the teens along the Arctic coast. 20s, western Alaska to mid to upper 20s here for the Bristol Bay area. Temperatures falling into the mid to upper 20s south central Alaska. So definitely precipitation will be in the form of snow. What does fall tonight, freezing right at Kodiak, upper 30s along the North Gulf Coast, but 30 at Valdez. Temperatures in the 20s to lower 30s for the Panhandle, and mostly in the upper 30s out here over the Aleutians, a little chillier toward the Shimia area, upper 20s there for St. Lawrence Island. And looking ahead for the highs for Monday afternoon, 10 to 15, upper Yukon Valley to the eastern Brooks Range, and not bad for this time of year, into the mid-20s there along the Arctic coast and North Slope, and the Seward Peninsula, mid to upper 20s, and then lower 30s here down to maybe mid to upper 30s northeast Bristol Bay. Lower 30s, definitely a cooler day coming up for southern Alaska here as that brief shot of cold air swings in with the clearing skies behind the cold front, and looks like highs in the lower 20s for the Copper River Basin, in the lower to mid 20s the Tanana Valley, the 40-mile country, a little chillier there to the east, and 30s to near 40 for the Panhandle. Following morning, looks like, again, not much difference here. 0 to 5 above over the eastern interior, Arctic Village down to 5 below. Otherwise, nothing in the way of any significant cold showing up at all. Staying above 0 on the Arctic coast, and lower 30s here for Bristol Bay. Upper 30s to lower 40s for the Alaska Peninsula. A little chillier south central Alaska, some clearing skies, so it could get down into the 10 to 20 degree range. Actually all the way down to the Kenai Peninsula here, mid-20s to the Prince William Sound area. Around 8 for Gulkana, and the southeast coast, not much change in what you see tomorrow morning there. Upper 20s to lower 30s, and lows in some cases having trouble dropping below 40 degrees out here over the Aleutians. Mid 30s farther to the west, upper 20s St. Lawrence Island. And then looking at the highs for for Tuesday afternoon, single numbers and teens in the northern interior. Warming back into the 30s south central Alaska, 40s for the Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving into our first significant weather graphic, IFR here from Kuskokwim Bay northward, right to the western Arctic coast there, and across northern Seward Peninsula, along the Brooks Range, and then getting kind of hit and miss here as you head south, but still some early on along and west of the Alaska Range. Copper River Basin with the main bulk of moisture shifting eastward, and then some more lowering conditions in IFR out over the Aleutians with that next storm. VFR in the Panhandle, but some marginal VFR will increase over Lynn Canal Glacier Bay, otherwise staying VFR. Remainder of the southeast coast tomorrow. Good VFR developing here. Temporary higher pressure drying it out and bringing some cooler air in. And that'll make for VFR conditions actually starting in the morning here for south central Alaska and eventually spreading into the Copper River Basin. IFR still lingering up there, northern Koyukuk Valley, south side of the Brooks Range. And a swath of VFR here along the southwest coast. Looks like just marginal VFR with no IFR associated with that storm out in the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Then for Tuesday morning, area IFR here up over the northwest interior, roughly in Selawik Valley, eastward across the Koyukuk Valley to the Brooks Range. Marginal VFR, North Slope Arctic coast. VFR holding, looks like a pretty good start to the day here, south central Alaska, Copper River Basin, Prince William Sound. VFR for the Panhandle, right on up into Norton Sound. Marginal for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Outlook for Tuesday afternoon, we've got increasing IFR here in northern Bering Sea, St. Lawrence Island, and some of that will spread on up into the southern Seward Peninsula, on down the Yukon Delta coastline. Also the southwest mountains here becoming IFR, but pretty good VFR up over the Tanana Valley all the way up into the North Slope and upper Yukon Valley into Canada, with IFR developing along the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range, and with that southeast flow, same pattern, or the usual pattern here. IFR western Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula. VFR for the Panhandle passes Anatuvik marginal tomorrow, as well as Adigan marginal VFR. Lake Clark and Merrill improving. VFR early on becoming VFR probably by mid-morning, and same trend for rainy, marginal early on, then VFR. Windy, marginal VFR becoming VFR by at least noon or sooner. Isabel, IFR becoming VFR, and moisture taking a little longer to exit here over toward Mentasta, so IFR becoming marginal in the latter part of the afternoon. Tanita, IFR becoming VFR, and Portage, same trend, IFR becoming VFR. Chilcoot White, VFR, with that moisture sliding eastward in the afternoon, becoming marginal. Freezing levels, colder air coming in, so that'll push 2,000 feet by tomorrow morning here east of Kodiak Island into the Gulf of Alaska as that trough. So precipitation coming across will be in the form of snow here across southern Alaska all the way down to sea level. And for the icing, moisture sliding eastward here. Tomorrow afternoon, about this position, areas of just isolated moderate rime icing below 4,000 feet. Another batch up here to the west-northwest. And with that front pushing eastward here across the Aleutians, could see some considerable moderate rime icing along in advance of the front, coming across the Fox Islands, pushing in toward the Alaska Peninsula. And it looks like some icing chances increase with the Pribilofs late in the afternoon. And then this area lifts north of the central Aleutians. Taking a look at the jet stream tomorrow, upper trough, kind of that wiggle in the flow here, moving eastward, taking the moisture with it, clearing skies, a little cooler temperatures, and definitely drier, ridging up over the southwest interior. Next storm out here over the Aleutians, and 9,000 foot winds, pretty windy with this, 55 to 65 knots here, Alaska Peninsula, back in toward the central Aleutians, turning northerly 40 to 65 knots across the western Aleutians, and some pretty good easterlies across southern Bering Sea. Much lighter, weak or narrow ridge axis here, just 10 to 15, maybe 20 knots here for south central Alaska. 20 to 30 knots westerlies right through here over the interior. And then at 3,000 feet, looking like this, about 20 to 25 through here. Higher pressure, lighter winds down to the south. Not bad all the way down the Panhandle. And then the stronger winds, 40 to 65 knots here, or 40 to 60 knots across the southeast, or the eastern Aleutians, and pushing into the southeast Bering Sea. And turbulence with that by late afternoon here along the southwest coast, about Togiak Bay, Alaska Peninsula, moderate chop all the way out to Shemya and Attu, and some areas of light turbulence up over the northern interior. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
We have a big solar flare coming in, so we're out here on an aurora hunt. It's a CME, it's a dynamite, coronal mass ejection. So when the sun, it kicks off energy in these explosions that are larger than the Earth, explosion type things coming off of sunspots. And if that energy is pointing straight at the Earth, it gets caught up in our magnetic field, and that energy, electrons, come down our magnetic field, collide with oxygen up there about 50 or a couple hundred miles high, and that's what generates the northern lights. My job as the photographer and the aurora hunter is to be in position, you know, location, location, location. And I like to think I'm composing. Mother Nature, it's a bit of a teamwork thing, you know, she's got to put on the show, but I have to be in the right position and of course with the right tools and the know-how. I've stopped keeping track of how much time I spend out here in terms of hours. It's more in terms of weeks or months, or at this point years now. You know, it was always in me. Even when I was a kid growing up in the lower 48, I would spend nights sleeping on our trampoline, just staring at the stars. I'm in 4th grade and I'm going, wow, look at those stars. And I'd see how many nights in a row I could sleep on the trampoline. And I think my record was 23 nights in a row. So I was doing kind of strange things for an Iowa country boy. I can remember specifically the very first time I saw the northern lights. It was 1989, the peak of the solar cycle, and I was going to graduate school in Laramie, Wyoming. And all of a sudden we had heard the northern lights were out. It's like, what are those? I'd never really seen them before. And my goodness gracious, we were on top of a mountain in the Laramie Range and they were turning blood red. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And the very first picture I took, that was 1990. Now, an old film camera, Pentax K1000 on a plastic Kmart tripod. Took 2 shots on slide film and got them back. And I thought, oh my gosh, this beautiful green thing swirling about. And from that moment, I was hooked. When I realized that you could preserve the auroras on film, I just experimented a ton. I'd had a heaping stack of slides, the no good ones. The experiments gone wrong, you know, too dark, fuzzy, out of focus, too light. I had this huge garbage can full of excess slide film, and that was just the learning curve. Well, when I go out here, it's all about getting the shot. And my wife and I, we've called it the hero shot. But the hero shot is the one where you just come home and you go, look at this. And everyone goes, wow, and you feel like a hero. It's a wonderful feeling, you know. It's good for the ego, of course. It's good for the business. But if you kind of strip that away, it's good for what's inside you, because that's really the hero moment in nature. And Mother Nature's putting on this show that is just mind-blowing. It's unbelievable. When I first resigned from my day job, that was in 1996, and decided I wanted to become a full-time aurora hunter, my goal from that moment and to this day still is to get 1 hero shot a year. I figured, and I'm talking the kind that somebody wants to buy from you and hang on their wall, where the auroras are extremely bright, very active, turning colors, where you can't believe your eyes. If you get to preserve a little sample of that with a photograph, well, it's what we call the hero shot. Wow, what a feeling. I mean, oh, you're elevated, levitating, you are lifted up. Your spirits are so high that I love that feeling. And I think I get that so much from seeing cool things in nature that I will go way out of my way to find that. And I can, you know, the next day, well, I'll be just laying there thinking about it and thinking how lucky I was, or how fortunate. Of course, I just, you know, spent 2 weeks sitting there staring at the sky and not seeing anything, so you got to remember that, you know, luck is kind of a relative term, but I still just feel incredibly lucky to be even in a position to where I could have been there, taken a photograph of it, and just mainly experienced it. Well, that feeling could last for days.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Sea ice analysis for today, still showing ice-free area all the way up to almost Wrangell Island there, but pretty good ice back to the east. And then not much change here occurring along the coast. Westerly winds, if anything, would be reducing this area ice, trying to shove it back into the coastline along with some melting. And Norton Sound still a fair amount of ice. And moving on to the coastal water forecast, pretty good conditions, very light winds for the outer coastline tomorrow, south-southeast at about 10, maybe up to 15 from the southwest and the north coast, going along with those 8-foot seas. Southeast 15, northern central inside waters, southeast 10 for Clarence Strait, seas just 2 feet. Outlook for Tuesday, southeast 15 here, southern and central inside waters, north 15, northern Link Canal, east-southeast at 10, still light winds here on the south coast with seas at about 10 feet, southeast 15, so increasing as you head north, 25 knots on the extreme north coast. And for Prince William Sound tomorrow, west winds at about 20 knots. That'll tend to diminish and become lighter later in the afternoon. Otherwise, for the North Gulf Coast, west-southwest 15 to 20 and northwest 15 for the Barren Islands. Higher pressure developing over southern Alaska and moving eastward, so those winds tomorrow and tomorrow afternoon will become northeast 15 to 20 here in Cook Inlet, east 20 for Kamishak Bay. Seas running 3 to 5 feet in those areas. And then bigger increase coming up with that front coming in from the west on Tuesday, north 20 north of the Forelands. Small craft advisories northeast 30 knots south of the southern Cook Inlet, 8-foot seas. Gales here for Kamishak Bay, southeasterly gales for the Barren Islands. And east-southeast 25 to 30 knots for the North Gulf Coast, seas 11 to 14 feet. Prince William Sound, winds east 25 knots with 6-foot seas. Kodiak Island tomorrow on the east side, northeast at about 20, east 25 for Shelikof Strait. But storm force winds on the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, almost that on the south side, seas building up to 21 feet. Gales for Bristol Bay out of the east, and 40-knot winds, Sitkinak to Castle Cape with 15-foot seas. Then for the Tuesday, we've still got pretty good gales here over the Alaska Peninsula. Lighter now on the Bering Sea side with down to 35 knots. Southerlies 45 knots, seas 32 feet here on the south side of the peninsula. 40-knot winds continue from the south. Castle Cape to Sitkinak and Kodiak Island, south to southeast 30 knots. Seas running up to 16 feet in the Pacific there. Shelikof Strait about 7 feet. Aleutians, hurricane force wind warnings out for the far western Aleutians there. Kind of a narrow band of northerly winds at 65 knots with seas near 30 feet. Otherwise storms here. And 40 to 60 knot winds for the central Aleutians, dropping off to 40 knots behind the front, and the low center coming in, relaxing the gradient, but still really windy conditions. 55 to 60 knot storm force or storm warnings all the way across the Fox Islands. And the outlook for Tuesday, dropping off, looks like 30 to 45 knots now with strongest winds for Unalaska Island from the south-southeast. And then when swinging around, that low center coming in right about to this position, a little to the south. So average it out and you got a north wind at 30 knots for the central Aleutians, but increasing tighter gradient out to the west. Storm force warnings, storm force northerlies with seas up to 28 feet, 50 knots there for the western Aleutians. Southwest coast, gales, storms for the Pribilofs, east 50 knots, 23-foot seas, 40-knot winds here, Kuskokwim Bay, into the northern Bering Sea around St. Matthew Island. Diminishes as you head north here, just northeast at 15, or northeast at 20 for St. Lawrence Island. And then those pick up considerably for Tuesday with northeast sustained 45 knots, 17-foot seas, east 30 for the Pribilofs, northeast 50 knots there for the St. Matthew Island zone. Southwest coast, east-southeast 40 to 45 knots, seas 13 to 14 feet. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, or really the central and east side, east or east-southeast at 15, turning west here for the west side at 15 knots, and then from Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, westerlies at 20, south of Cape Thompson, northwest at 20 knots with 5-foot seas. And then for the following day on Tuesday, small craft advisories, northeast 30 knots here for the Chukchi Sea, but 15 knots from Cape Thompson from the west-northwest, turning southwest 15 on the central coast eastward, and then more westerly, tad stronger, 20 knots there for the far eastern zone. And for tonight, snow advisory, south central Alaska, Cook Inlet, anywhere from 3 to 8 inches of snow. Snow advisories here for the western part of the state, Yukon Delta northward. Storm warnings coming in with that system out to the west. And that's all I got time for. Thank you.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.